The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, predicts an 85% chance of an above normal Atlantic hurricane season for 2024. And this is spanning from June 1st to November 30th. They expect some 17 to 25 named storms, with 8 to 13 of them becoming hurricanes, and 4 to 7 of them reaching major hurricane status. So I'm pleased to welcome two industry professionals who've given up some time today to talk to the industry about the hurricane season that we're in, but we're going to see a lot more activity this year, according to the experts. But let's have you both introduce yourselves. We have Ben Looper and Jeff Moore. Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with the RIA.
Ben Looper, current president of the RIA and CEO of Southeast Restoration Group based out of Atlanta here. So glad to be with you talking about this. I'm excited to be joined by Jeff Moore. I'll let him introduce himself and we'll dive right in.
Yeah, so Jeff Moore, I'm a second generation restorer. My dad founded ATI back in 1989. We've scaled across the company, got about 70 locations, and got a burning desire and passion for everything RIA. I'm currently president-elect, trying to build up affinity partnerships and bringing vendors into our coffers and figuring out how we as an organization can provide savings to all of those restorers out there. So excited to be here today. So thanks for having us.
Like I said, I appreciate both of you. I know you're busy with not only your own companies, but the RIA, and thank you for all you do for the industry. We're here to talk about a busier than normal hurricane season. Now, you both are veterans. You've seen predictions come and go. When you see predictions like we have this year, how do you respond to those? What do you do personally? And Jeff, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think timing's pretty impeccable. I'll kind of start there. You know, we're coming off of probably one of the slower Q4s I think the industry's had, followed by a pretty slow Q1 and Q2. So I think like everyone else, hopefully listening to this, hopefully some of these predictions do come true, because I think it's a nice shot in the arm, not only in those markets where hurricanes come into, but I know in prep for this, Ben and I were even talking about, you know, a hurricane, if it hits Florida or Texas, doesn't just help those areas. Those remnants of that storm and those rainfall is going to continue up the northern seaport. And, you know, a hurricane coming through Texas could actually impact, you know, 20 different states and a lot of restorers. And so, you know, as far as what are we doing and are they true, I think it's like any other prediction. But, you know, the reality is water's warmer, temperatures are increasing. You look at the reasons why they're predicting an abnormal amount of hurricanes, comes down to the fact that it's hotter and the waters are hotter. And the hotter the waters are, the more activity we have. And so speaking for ATI Restoration, we are certainly prepared. We're doing webinars, we're talking with customers, making sure we're getting our resources strategically placed. It's a lot of planning. It's planning you do every year. Whether they come true or not, as a restorer, if you are in those markets or potential markets, you have to prepare as if they're going to happen. And there's a lot of preparation, everything from operations to accounting to financing to resources. What can you do? What can't you do? I mean, you know, taking on more work could be the last decision you make in your business. And so making sure everyone in your organization, from the lead generation to the guys and gals operating it, to making sure you have the cash flow to actually do it. But most importantly, you can't ever leave your day-to-day business. I think that's the one thing we've learned over the years. You have to take care of your day-to-day customers, because you're going to go back to them as soon as the storm rolls through, whether it's in your market or outside your market. And if those customers leave to someone else because you lost in service, production, quality time, you took a shot in the arm, which was great. But that high is going to come to a really quick slowdown here. So I think that's the most important thing, is people decide if they want to play in that space or not.
Good thoughts, Jeff. Appreciate that. Yeah, it is interesting how people's misery, you might say, from storms is what our industry needs to survive. I guess there would be no doctors if there were no patients. You might make that comparison as well. Well, Ben, I don't know. What do you have to add to that? Jeff set it up nicely.
Not a lot, because Jeff nailed it there. I will say the people component is critical in these times, especially as we're in a slow period in most of the regions, not all the regions, but most of the regions, here across the country, we're in a slower pattern over the last 6-7 months, and the mentality of your teams changes, and we're in a preparation mode. And then when you see statistics come out, anticipating more storms coming in what some regions, where I'm in the Southeast region, and in some regions, this is typically our busiest season of the year, coming out of spring, going through the summer and into fall, on a bell curve. And historically, these are our busiest seasons anyway. And then you add on top of that potential additional cat, situations and claims. It can really tax a team that has maybe not been running at full bore for the beginning of the year. So, making sure that you're communicating expectations and preparing your team. I think Jeff nailed it when he said, know your business. Some businesses are set up to, respond in primarily 2 storms and 2 cats. Some businesses are not and will handle the overflow, but know your business and know your capabilities when these things come, and don't overcommit yourself, because if you do, it will hurt you not only in the short term, but it'll hurt you in the long run as well. So just be aware of that, know your capabilities, know your capacity and what you can handle, and know when to cut it off and say no. You're better off saying no and letting somebody else have it than taking on something that you can't handle, or you're going to lose money or not be profitable on.
Both of you shared some great tips, some details there. You both have been doing this a long time. In your careers, have these predictions proven extremely valuable, accurate? If you were to grade it, what would you say? Jeff, what do you think?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I would say, yes, they're valuable. And the fact that, so I actually had a call within our own company last week with our bank, which we haven't historically always done, trying to figure out what our own capacity is from a cash flow perspective. But I'd say historically, we're doing the same prep, whether they're predicting them or they're not predicting them, whether they come true or not true. But I think if you're a business that's in catastrophe, if you're a business in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, if you're in one of those hotspots, you absolutely need to pay attention to these. I think any others, you're going to get remnants of a hurricane. So it's good to know to plan, but I don't know that we're planning any differently. Whether they predicted 0 named storms or they predicted 100, to be honest with you, Jeff, I don't know that my business, and I don't know that most restorers are probably doing anything differently, unless you're in like the eye of the hurricane in your day-to-day business.
Well, Ben, how about you? What you've seen these come and go, these predictions. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I believe as the technology and the weather field and the analytics get better, I think they're probably the predictions are getting closer. With all the sophisticated technologies that they have in today. So I do think it's important, and I do think it's that we pay attention. But as Jeff said, I don't know that it's necessary to do. I'm not gonna bank on, commit anything I wouldn't otherwise. And I'm not going to bank on this happening to be the survival tool of the organization. But I am going to pay attention and will be ready to respond in the event that their predictions are true, that we do have more storms. So communicating what the experts say to your teams and making sure that they're aware that we could be in for a, busy storm season, and just putting in the back of their head, there could be some long nights and weekends coming in a busy season when a lot of people maybe are shifting PTOs and covering for each other. So you may be shorthanded, during the summer months when people are typically taking their time off, and we may be working longer hours in order to do so if these predictions do come true. So nobody's surprised when it does happen.
I want to talk about preparation tips and advice you might give, but let's change the angle of this a little bit, because a lot of folks watching this video right now, this interview, might not have done this type of work, but they want to. And I'll tell you what, I remember many emails and phone calls I got from some restorers who went to the East Coast when Sandy hit, and they had trouble. They had trouble with billing, collecting, logistics when they got there, all kinds of issues. Not that I could help them, but they were asking questions. What do I do? Well, what would you tell them in advance that they should do? Jeff, what do you think?
So I think the most important thing is you got to figure out, what type of work do you want? Do you have work going in there? Are you going to do residential, commercial work? I think the next thing is what kind of licensing do you need? Because there, as a restorer, we've learned the hard way. There are states that require contractor's license to go do emergency services work. There's states that don't require it. A lot of times they'll lift them. So because that's the worst thing you can do is get a job, do it successfully, and then find out that the customer has no legal obligation because you are contracting on a job that you are not rightfully entitled to do so. And therefore, even though they may get reimbursement from the insurance company, there's no legal right that they actually have to pay you as a contractor. So I think you got to figure out first, what type of work do you want to get? Do you have a commitment in advance? Are you doing TPA work? Are you doing work for other restorers? And so all of those come with nuances and challenges anytime you're working for a third party. So if I'm a local restoration company working for ATI as an example, there's more risk in working for another restorer than there is working for the customer directly in terms of lien rights, legal rights to make sure you get paid. But I'll tell you, historically, doing cat work and doing large loss in general after a storm, it's more complicated. There's more insurance. There's more layers involved. There's more people auditing your invoices. Cash flow will be impacted. I don't care if you're ATI or if you're a guy that started your business or a girl that started it last week. It's going to take you longer to get paid. There's more people that are going to review your invoices. You're going to get pushback from a lot more people. So that's the reason that we had the meeting with our bank last week, trying to figure out what even our capacity is or isn't, and where we may be pushing the limit. So making sure you have those discussions in advance, making sure you have the people that are willing to travel and leave their families. Are they willing to leave for a week at a time, Jeff? Are they willing to leave for potentially 8 weeks at a time? How much staff do you have? How much equipment do you have that you can drop into a truck and go out there? Because that will also predict how much you can do. If you don't have hotels in advance, a lot of times we don't know exactly what's coming in, honestly, until it hits. Again, the weather's accurate, but it's only directionally correct. So even getting hotels for us, even at our size, is challenging. There's many times where an event could hit Miami, Florida, and we could be driving from 2.5, 3 hours away. But the second you decide that you're going to respond, you need to secure your hotels. You need to get flights. You need to get people as close as you can. If you're renting all of your equipment, sometimes you have to hire someone like a Sunbelt and put an entire trailer on rental if you're not bringing it in from out of town, because they're going to give priority service to those that are already, even though you may not have it in your possession, they will charge you for today, even if it's not hitting for 3 days. And if you have to pay 3-day rental for a trailer, at least you have the equipment. There's nothing worse than going down there. I've got the people, and then to find out I don't have the equipment. I don't have pull with the Sunbelt Rentals or any other rental company. And now I got the job, but I can't actually do it. And now you're going to pay through the roof or drive it into town. So just making sure you're scheduled and planned accordingly. There's 3 or 4 main logistical things you have to plan in advance.
You make it sound so easy, Jeff.
It's learned by fire, but honestly, if you get your department heads figuring out what your capacity is, that's the most important part. How are you going to get the job done? Once you break it down, it's no different than doing a big job, Jeff. Doing a $5,000 water loss is no more complicated than $1 million. There's just a few more steps and a little bit more complications, but you get the right people sitting in the room and spend half a day. It's really not that complicated.
Yeah. Ben, what are your thoughts there? And I know you've got good people on your team as well.
We do. We do have good people, and Jeff and ATI. I've known him a long time, and his dad, and their business a long time, and they do a very good job at doing this. But I'm sure Jeff and their organization would tell you they've learned a lot of lessons along the way. And so going back to what I said earlier, know your business, know your capabilities, and know what you can and can't do, and prepare accordingly. It's a cash flow decision, because you got to, it's not a revenue decision. You can see the big numbers that it could be possible, even if you've got the relationships. You gotta secure those relationships and know that there's work there. But you've got to be able to cash flow the things that Jeff just mentioned, that he talked about, and these could be I'm talking large bills that have to be paid way before you could even bill or get paid. But these things are things that are expected to be paid on the front end that you have to be able to cover before you can collect. So know that business, and we respond locally in our markets. We do not travel from a cat situation, so we made that decision years ago at the when we were doing this, because of the dynamic and our people. And this is nothing, let me preface that with saying it's nothing against those who do, because there's great companies like ATI and other business models that are set up for that, and we may do it in the future. We just haven't and currently don't do that because of the we don't want to take our people out of the markets that we're in and not be able to service the markets that we're in. So we strategically made that decision and take them potentially away from their families for long periods of time. And so just know what all is involved in that. I've heard too many horror stories across the industry over the years of people that had big dollar signs in their eyes and loaded up big trucks and equipment and went and spent a lot of money to lose more money than they made, and some that have lost everything because they took a gamble and took a risk on it. So just understand the risk that comes along with it. Make sure you've got the capabilities to cash flow through that period, and it could be 6 months or a year when you're talking about a lot of that stuff, or longer, that you have to cash flow that decision.
A follow-up, Jeff, to that on Ben's point is, if you look back the last 5 years, I'll use ATI as an example. I'd say half the times that we're responding in advance to, we're sending out a trailer, we're spending the money to get a semi-tractor trailer out there in advance. We're typically sending anywhere from 2 to 12 people in the eye, close to the eye, closest airport. I'd say we've got a 500 batting average, which in baseball is great, but those events, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'd say half the time we're getting nothing. Like, we're not getting a job. We literally sent 10 or 12 people down there, sit in a hotel, per diem, meals, flights, rental cars, and it's a goose egg. And so that's just, local restore, big restore, it doesn't matter. Just know that just because you go down there doesn't actually mean you're going to get a job, because again, those predictions, just like the weather in our backyard, they may say it's going to rain today, but it may not. And they're predicting no rain tomorrow, and it's going to pour tomorrow for an hour. And it's not always correct. It's not as bad as we thought it was going to be for a hurricane. And sometimes they're goose eggs. So just know that if you do your first event and you respond, there's a chance you're going to spend some money and not actually get anything for it. But as long as you know the odds going into it, it will eventually pay off, but it is a numbers game.
Yeah, what I'm getting from both of you is think ahead and plan what you're going to do and be smart about it. So you both have different business models in a way. Yeah. Jeff, you will chase a storm. Ben decides to concentrate on his market. Both of you see what's happening and you make that decision in advance. So definitely respect that. Let's close with the RA perspective of this. So obviously there are those doing this work who are RA members, some who are not, but I'd love to hear from you both. And Ben, you're the current president. Jeff, you'll be the next, I imagine, as president-elect. What does the RA do to help in these situations when these predictions come true? What are you doing for your members? Ben, let's start with you.
The RIA is paying close attention to this. We have our quarterly board meeting coming up next week, and this will be something that will be brought to everyone's attention. Obviously, there's nothing we're doing, in the onset right now until we see something going on. But we will be communicating. There will be, as we see what happens with the storms, we're paying close attention to the predictions, and we're watching the regions, that it's in, and the contractors that are members. We want to make sure we're helping them any way we can, connecting them with the affiliate partnerships and making sure that we're doing everything we can to support them in the event that they do have excess need for whatever, materials, labor, whatever it could be in those areas. We'll be able to respond accordingly. So we will acknowledge and make sure everybody is up to speed and of what the weather services are predicting for the upcoming months and in the hurricane season this year, and then make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row in the event that these events do happen. We can get the communication out timely and help our members there.
I like that. And I think too many people in every industry think of an association as the trade show. And RA is not just a trade show, it's the support organization for things like this. Would you agree with that, Ben?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
This is not a once a year event. This is something this industry, and I believe that's why we have the momentum that we have right now. When you're seeing the membership growth and the more members coming on board, volunteering, and helping this industry address and do the things that are necessary, because it's not just a once a year trade show event. This is something that we're working on things consistently and constantly for the industry to better everyone's chances to be successful.
Thank you for doing that. So Jeff, any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I honestly haven't given it a whole lot of thought, but as I'm thinking about it now, I think something we could do. One thing that RAA did really good in COVID was Mark Springer keeping everyone up to date on that major event as it was live. I challenge Ben, myself, and the RAA leadership team to, if and when a major event, talking category 2 hurricane and above comes, I think it would be great to do a follow-up podcast or webinar with you, maybe get some press out there, maybe get one of our RAA members boots on the ground, maybe with actual photos and videos, and really talk about how it's being impacted from a restorer's perspective. We've got plenty of members that will be boots on the ground. So I think as a proactive move moving forward, I think that's something we should do as there are major events, whether it's quite honestly, it could be a hurricane, it could be a wildfire in California. But if there's something that's impacting a large swath of the geography, we could do a better job. And I will take that back to the board and challenge us to get that out to our membership.
I'd like to add one thing to what Jeff just said. The good news is with the technology we have these days, we can do that and create that content, and the members and the contractors that are affected by it and that are interested in it can participate and be involved and listen to, Jeff mentioned wildfires in California. And if I'm in Atlanta and don't have anything to do with wildfires in California, it may not mean anything to me. And if I want to be updated or I can listen to that, or I don't have to. Whereas, if you're in a different region and, there's a hurricane hits or there's another event that could be, potentially something that you need to be aware of, then obviously you can listen in on those specific things, but it won't be it could be something that is regional, or that you can listen to if it's something that affects you or your organization.
Thank you both for your time today. Definitely appreciate what you do for the industry.